Hi, my name's Phil Gardner and welcome to Fun with Boxes. Today I'm taking a look at a game that many people will be excited about, and that's Wyrmspan, the Dragon World standalone successor to the massive hit board game Wingspan. Designed by Connie Vogelmann and developed by Wingspan Designer Elizabeth Hargrave and published by the wonderful Stonemaier games. This is Connie's second published game, hot on the heels of Apiary from last year, the Space Bee game, also from Stonemaier games. So, welcome to the world of Wyrmspan, where dragons of many shapes, sizes and colours fill the skies and freely roam the world. You are an amateur dracologist in this world of wonders and have recently discovered hidden labyrinths that you are starting to excavate, and you would love to entice some of these beautiful creatures to roost in the sanctuary of your caves that you are unearthing. Your sanctuary begins with 3 excavated spaces, which you have named the Crimson Cavern, the Golden Grotto and the Amethyst Abyss, after the things you have found whilst excavating them. You want to entice many dragons to come and live in your sanctuary, so you will need to create plenty of space for them. And as you excavate deeper, you will find many things to use to entice the dragons. And as more and more dragons come to stay in your sanctuary, they too will bring many things that will make your sanctuary better than anyone else's for miles around. You may well start as an amateur dracologist, but in the end, will you climb the ranks and be the leading dracologist of the world of Wyrmspan? Well, join me now as we take a Fun with Boxes look at what you get in this wonderful game of wonderful dragons. You do not need me to tell you that Wyrmspan is inspired by its predecessor Wingspan. Just looking at the box covers is enough, and a glance at the back of the box covers will reveal some obvious shared game mechanics. But this is not just a rethemed version of the first game. This is not just Wingspan with dragons. This is a rather special twist of familiar mechanics with unique elements that truly make this a standalone game in its own right. If you loved Wingspan, then you're going to fall in love all over again with this game. But if birds were not your thing, and you may have somehow avoided Wingspan altogether, well, now is the chance to right that wrong. What's not to love about dragons? Goodness, there are a lot of them, a veritable horde of dragons. Too many, in fact, to wave a stick at, if you were foolish enough, that is, to wave a stick at them. So, let's take a look at how you set up and play a game of Wyrmspan. Setup is a rather straightforward process. First, select one of the 4 dragon tile boards at random and pop that onto the table, with the side face up dependent on the number of players. Pop the card display board next to it, and here is where you will place the dragons and cave cards available for players each round. Shuffle up that enormous pile of wonderful dragon cards and deal 3 cards face up onto the board. Do the same with the cave cards. Next, we need to set up the round tracker board. Pop this to one side and place the orange round tracker onto space 1. Shuffle up all of the objective tiles and place 4 of them onto the board with a random side face up. Place all the coins, eggs and other tokens onto the table within easy reach of players. And that's the gaming area all set up. Now we just need to get each player set up and we're ready to play. So we grab a player mat and all the pieces of one colour. That's 1 adventurer, 8 cubes and 1 dragon guild token. Then each player gets 6 coins, 1 egg and any combination of 3 resources of their choice of gold, crystal, meat or milk. Then from the top of the card decks, deal each player 3 dragon cards and 3 cave cards. From these, each player needs to pick 4 cards in total to keep in any combination, placing the 2 remaining cards face up into their discard piles. Place your player pieces, coins and resources to the side of your board and pop your explorer onto its starting place at the base camp and pop your egg onto one of the 2 nests. Place your guild token onto the start place on the guild track, and all you need to do then is randomly select a starting player and give them the first player token. As you can see, setup is pretty straightforward. The only thing that could throw you a little is picking your 4 cards to keep from the 6 you were given, and what 3 resources to start a game with if this is the first time you're playing the game. Personally, I went for 2 dragons look cute and 2 cave cards that would give me the most resources. The cave cards are straightforward. When you play them, you get whatever is on the card. The dragons, however, need to be enticed into your caves with some tasty bits of meat perhaps, or with the temptation of gold or milk or some shiny crystals. So when you pick your dragon cards, pay attention to what you will need to entice them into your caves. You will see what they want at the top left-hand side of their cards. So the best advice I could give is to bear that in mind when picking your 3 starting resources. Perhaps you could pick the ones that would let you play a dragon card straight away, or at least get you on the road to getting everything you need for that dragon. And now on to how the game is played. The game is played over 4 rounds, with each player taking a turn, starting with the starting player, and going clockwise around the table until all players have passed taking a turn. The round will then end where you will perform some actions and upkeep before passing the start player marker onto the next player clockwise and starting another round of actions. At the end of the 4th round, we will perform the endgame scoring and find out who is the winner. On your turn, you have 4 different actions you can take. You can excavate, where you play a cave card onto your board to make room for dragons. You could entice, where you entice dragons to stay in the caves in your caverns. Or you could explore and walk your adventurer through one of your caverns to see what you find. Or finally, you can pass and take no further actions that round, which you would have to do if you did not have any coins left to take actions. And talking of coins, coins are how you will be paying for your actions in each turn. And everyone starts the game with 6 coins. Let's take a look at each action and how they work. Excavate. You need to excavate caves for your dragons to live in. At the start of the game, the first space of each of your 3 caverns has already been excavated. So you can start to move dragons in right away. But in order to get more dragons, you need more caves. So the 2nd, 3rd and 4th spaces in your caverns will need to be excavated first before you can put a dragon in them. The cost of this is shown on your board. It costs 1 coin plus anything shown at the top of the column you are excavating in. So looking at the player board, to excavate in the 2nd column costs you 1 coin. The 3rd column will cost you 1 coin plus 1 egg, and the 4th column 1 coin and 2 eggs. When excavating, you select the leftmost empty space to excavate. So at the beginning of the game, you can only excavate in the 2nd column. After placing the cave card, you get to activate its when placed ability and follow what's printed on the card. These tend to be very straightforward. Get in the listed resources, for example. The next action is Entice, and this allows you to attract those wondrous dragons into your caves. To play a dragon card, the cost is 1 coin, as shown on your board, plus whatever the costs are for the dragon at the top left-hand side of its card. Typically a combination of gold, meat, crystals or milk. You can only play a dragon to an excavated cave, and you must place them from left to right. Also, each dragon has a preference to the type of cavern it likes. This is shown on the left-hand side of the card underneath its play costs. You can only play a dragon to cavern if its colour is shown on the card. For example, this dragon will only live in the top crimson cavern. You cannot play it into any other cavern. And talking of dragons, let's pause for a second and take a closer look at the dragon cards. All dragons have 1 of 4 abilities or benefits printed on them at the bottom of the card, with clear icons that will remind you of when you apply these. This is the when played benefit icon. You get this as soon as you play the card. This is the once per round ability icon, and these effects or abilities happen at the end of every round. And this is the end of game ability icon that will provide you with victory points right at the end of the game. The fourth ability is the If Activated ability, which will be activated when you take the Explore action when your adventurer walks through a cavern. As we have seen, here is the cost to play the dragon. Remember, to play a dragon, it costs 1 coin plus whatever is shown here on the card. Underneath are the indicators for what caves the dragon likes to live in, and over on the other side of the card we have the number of victory points the dragon will score you at the end of the game. Next is the size of the dragon. It could be large, medium, small, or a hatchling. And then the egg storage icons, which will tell you how many eggs can be stored on the dragon. And finally, the trait of the dragon, which can be aggressive, shy, playful, or helpful. Just like in Wingspan, there will be cards and effects that allow you to cache resources onto a card, tuck cards underneath cards, and lay or pay with eggs, all of which typically will score you points at the end of the game. Just follow the instructions on the card. This card allows you to place a resource from your supply onto the card. Simply do that. You have to have a resource in your supply to do this, of course. This card allows you to tuck a card from your hand underneath the card. Again, simply do that. If you have an ability that allows you to lay an egg, take an egg from the supply and place it on a dragon with an empty nest icon, or onto one of the 2 nest icons on your player board. If you run out of places to lay an egg, then you will be unable to place an egg. If you have an ability that allows you to pay an egg, then you can use any eggs from your 2 nests or from the eggs on the dragons. All of this would be very familiar to you if you've ever played Wingspan. There is, however, a new ability, and that is Hatchlings, a special type of dragon. These have a 3-part ability. Let's take a look at the example from the rulebook. The top part ability is activated as part of the Explore action. This is the If Activated ability. Then place a meat token from your supply onto the dragon. Then the second part activates because you just put a meat resource on the card. It tells you if you do this, then you gain a gold resource into your supply. The last part is the third ability that only activates when a specific requirement has been met. In this example, as soon as we have cached 3 meat resources onto the card, you gain 2 dragon cards from the display or deck into your hand. And now on to the last main action of the game, Explore, my favourite action. The first time you take this action, it costs you 1 coin as shown on your player board. The next time you take this action in a round, it costs you 1 coin plus an egg. And if you find yourself able to do this again in the same round, the third time you do it, it'll cost you a coin and 2 eggs. To take the action, you move your adventurer from its home base and along a path of a cavern, activating every If Activated icon in its path, until you reach the stop sign when you finish your turn and put your adventurer back into its home base. In the early part of the game, you will not have many or any dragon cards and cave cards on your board, meaning that you have little to explore. But as you entice dragons and build your caves, you get to explore further and further into your caverns and find more and more things you can possibly do on your explorations. You always start at the very left and move along to the right, activating things until you hit the stop sign. Depending on what dragon cards you have played, this can be very rewarding as you move through activating their abilities. In the later stages of the game, I find this very satisfying, just as I did in Wingspan. And finally, the last action you can take is the Pass action, which you will have to take if you run out of coins and are unable to take any further actions. Remember, all the actions cost at least 1 coin, and you only have 6 available at the very beginning of the game. Once you have taken your turn and performed an action, it's the next player's turn in clockwise order, and everyone continues to do this, taking 1 turn at a time until everyone has passed. And that triggers the end of the round. Before I talk you through the end of a round actions, I need to cover the Dragon Guild board. Whenever you activate this icon, you earn a Dragon Guild advancement and get to move your marker 1 space clockwise following the arrows on the board. As you will see, the first time you do this, you land on an egg, which means you lay an egg. The next time, you gain a meat resource, and then the next you gain a dragon card, and so on. Whenever you land on a brown space, you get to place one of your cubes onto the guild board, placing it into one of the empty squares and obtaining its effect or ability. Throughout the game, you can place at most 4 of your cubes onto this board. Okay, on to the end of a round. Once all players have played all their actions and have passed, it is the end of the round. Players discard any coins and eggs paid as costs from their player map. And then all players activate any once per round abilities if they have any. Next, we check to see if anyone has met that round's objective shown on the round board. And they place their cube relative to how well they did compared to the other players. If anyone is tied for a position, all tied players place their cubes in that position. And if a player has not met the objective, then they place their cube at the bottom in the 0 space. All points listed on this board are scored at the end of the game. Move the round marker one space to the right. Then refresh the cards in the display by discarding all dragons and all caves and replace them with new cards drawn from their respective decks. Players then collect 6 coins and an egg. If they cannot place the egg into a nest on their board or on a dragon, then they do not get the egg. This way, everyone starts the round with at least 6 coins to take their actions with. Be aware though that through various game actions, it's possible to carry forward coins from one round to the next. If you happen to do this, keep those that you carry forward, plus you gain the 6 coins. So it's possible to start a round with more than the standard 6 coins. Finally, pass the starting player token clockwise and a new round begins. And don't forget to pay attention to the new round's objective. There is one thing to be mindful of when ending your turn. Every time you perform an action and end your turn, there are certain limits to the number of cards, resources and coins that you may hold. The most you can hold is 9 cards, 9 resources and 9 coins. And if at the end of your turn you ever have more than this amount, then you have to discard down to 9. And something I always forget about, you can always exchange 2 of any resources for one specific resource. So for example, if you really needed a meat, you could put in a gold and a milk and exchange that for a meat. This is very handy, so don't be like me and forget about it. Game end and scoring. After you have completed the 4th and final round, it's time to score, and the game comes with a very handy scoring pad for you to keep track, as there are quite a few things you score points for. First, score points for any markers you may have placed on the Dragon Guild board. Then, add up all the points on your visible dragons on your board. Then, look for any end-game abilities of any dragons on your board. Then, count all the eggs on your board. These normally will score you 1 point each. And do the same for cached resources, scoring 1 point each. And also count all your tuck cards, and again score 1 point for each of them. Then take a look at the round board and score for any objectives as shown by where you have placed your cubes on the board. Finally, gain 1 point for every coin you have remaining in your supply, plus 1 point per 4 other items, such as dragon cards, cave cards, and resources, rounding down. And the player with the most points wins. If tied, the player with the most visible dragons wins, and if still tied, you share the victory. And that's the basics of how you play Wyrmspan. The rulebook is really well laid out, and you should have no problems in looking anything up. The back page features all the game's icons, which are all very easy to understand. Once you're up and running, you should find everything intuitive and easy to follow, especially if you played Wingspan in the past. Again, if there's anything you need to look up, the rulebook should have you covered. And there you have it. Hopefully this should enable you to quickly get started and get playing a wonderful game of Wyrmspan. So let's talk about the dragon in the room. Is this game good? Is this game the same as Wingspan? Is it worth taking a look at and worth investing my hard-earned cash? Well, the answers are yes, not really, yes, and hell yes. The game is brilliant. It just plays and flows so well. Yes, it shares its DNA with Wingspan, but this improves on an already brilliant design concept and elevates it into the skies, soaring and gliding with the very dragons it has created. As I said at the beginning, if you loved Wingspan, you should love this game. If birds were not your thing and the theme ever put you off from trying the game, and you find the dragon theme a bit more appealing, then you really do need to give this game a go. It is simply fantastic. Everything is just so engaging, so intuitive, and just plain so much fun. The artwork is amazing throughout, plus there's even a 32-page booklet all about dragon facts, and it's great. You don't need it to play the game, but it's just so much fun to read about the dragons and is a delightful, albeit unnecessary addition to round off such a perfectly packaged and rewarding gaming experience. I'd recommend this game to anyone. It's just such a satisfying game to play. Something I simply enjoy playing regardless of the result, win or lose. Who cares? I just had fun, and I had fun with dragons. Amazing stuff. That's 2 big dragon-sized fun with boxes thumbs up from me. Well, I really hope you enjoyed taking a look at this game with me. And if you did, please click the like button and also hit that subscribe button. If you did, dragons around the world would rejoice and be very happy indeed. So give that button a click. Thanks as always so much for watching, and please do take care. Bye for now.